Check your pay stub. Now check the one job on it you can't actually see, because you're working it right now. Maybe two of them. Nobody hired you. Nobody pays you. There's no badge, no manager, no clock to punch. You just got assigned. Quietly. Automatically. Probably before you were old enough to vote. And most people work these shifts for 40 years without ever realizing they were on the schedule. So let's pull up the schedule. The first shift shows up the moment you buy something to prove a point nobody asked you to make. I call it the image job. Your unpaid, unhired, second full-time gig of proving to strangers that you're doing well. And I want you to sit with how strange that is, because we have made it feel normal. Somewhere along the way, we all quietly agreed that part of being a successful adult is spending real money to look like you have money. Not to have money. To look like you have it. Those are not the same thing. They are not even close. And the gap between them is where futures get burned. Every dollar you spend on the appearance of wealth is a dollar that can never become actual wealth. That's not judgment. That's not moralizing. That's math. A dollar spent looking rich is gone. A dollar invested in becoming rich can multiply. Same dollar. Two completely different destinies. And you're choosing one every time you swipe. Let's put a real number on it, because this is where it stops being a feeling and starts being your future. The average new car payment in this country right now is around $770 a month. A perfectly reliable used car, call it $350. So the gap, the pure difference between looking good and being fine, is about $420 a month. $420. That sounds manageable. It sounds like a bill. It sounds like a few dinners out. It sounds like the kind of money people wave away because it doesn't feel life-changing. But take that same $420 and invest it instead, at a normal, boring, historical average return of around 7%. In 20 years, that little difference becomes over $200,000. Give it 30 years, and it's north of $500,000. $500,000. That is the price tag on looking a little more impressive in the parking lot. That is what the new car smell can cost. Wait, what? Yeah. Say it slowly. The choice is not between a nice car and a boring car. The choice is between a nice car and $500,000.
That's the real menu. That's the one nobody shows you. And it gets worse because the whole system is designed to make the expensive choice feel normal. The average new car loan is now around $44,000. Stretch that over about 70 months. Almost 6 years. 6 years of payments on something that starts losing value the second you drive it off the lot. And get this. Nearly 1 in 5 new car loans now carries a payment over $1,000 a month. $1,000. Every month. To move your body from one place to another while strangers maybe admire you at a red light. Maybe. Leasing is even sneakier because leasing is renting the costume. The average new lease runs about $619 a month, and at the end, you own nothing. You hand the keys back. That's it. Over 20 years of leasing, you'll pay somewhere around $150,000 and walk away owning zero. That same money invested, you'd be sitting on $300,000 and change. One path ends with empty hands. The other ends with a small fortune. Same driver, same commute, different job. Now, I know what some of you are thinking. But Neo, rich people drive nice cars. Some do. But here's my favorite part. When researchers looked at actual millionaires, not people pretending, not people performing, actual households with 7-figure net worths, the picture got a lot less glamorous. The classic study, The Millionaire Next Door, looked at what real millionaires actually drive. And at the top of the list, Toyota, Honda, Ford. Boring cars. Sensible cars. Cars nobody turns around to stare at. The boring, paid-off car you'd never look twice at? That is much closer to the millionaire's car than the leased sedan is. Because the people flexing the hardest are almost never the people with the most. They're the people performing the most. That difference is the whole game. Real wealth is quiet, because it is busy compounding somewhere you can't see it. So why do we do this?
Why do smart, hardworking people trade pieces of their future to impress people who are barely paying attention? Part of it is ancient. Humans signal status. We always have. But part of it is brand new. And it is glowing in your hand right now. The scroll. The endless highlight reel of everybody else's best moments. Their trips. Their kitchens. Their cars. Their outfits. Their staged little fragments of a life that looks richer than it probably is.
And that constant comparison has created something psychologists are now literally calling money dysmorphia. You look at your own perfectly okay finances and feel poor, behind, embarrassing, not because you are failing, but because you are comparing your full reality to someone else's performance. And here's the stat that should stop you cold. Around 95% of people who report having money dysmorphia say it's actively hurting their finances. Not just their mood, their money. The comparison is not just making people feel bad, it is making them spend. It is reaching into their wallets, pulling money out of their future, and using it to soothe a wound opened by a stranger's Tuesday post. And think about who you're performing for. Not your future self, who will have to live on whatever you manage to keep. Not the people who genuinely love you, who would love you just fine in the dented car. You're performing for the algorithm. For a feed of strangers who look at your post for half a second, maybe tap twice, and keep moving. You are mortgaging a real future for the approval of people whose names you may never know, who forgot you existed before their thumb even moved. That is the first shift, the appearance tax, the unpaid job of performing a wealth you don't have, funded by the wealth you will never get to keep. And look, I am not here to make you feel guilty for wanting nice things. Wanting nice things is human. I want nice things. The point is not shame. The point is sight, to notice the shift running, to notice the bell, to notice the little decisions that feel harmless in the moment, but compound into a life you did not mean to build. Because once you can see the job, you can clock out of it. Hold that thought. We're coming back to exactly how you walk off that shift. But there is a second shift, and this one is bigger, quieter, and honestly, it is not even your fault that you are on it. The first shift, the image job, at least you kind of signed yourself up for. Nobody forced the lease paperwork into your hand. But this second shift, this one got handed to you decades before you entered the workforce by an accident in the tax code, and almost nobody explained what had happened. So let me take you back to 1978. That year, a section goes into the tax code, Section 401, Paragraph K. I know, thrilling. Stay with me. It was never meant to become the main retirement system for regular workers.
It was a small, technical provision to let a handful of high-paid executives defer a little tax on some bonus money. That was it. A tiny loophole for people at the top. Then, around 1980, a benefits consultant named Ted Benna looks at that little paragraph and realizes something. Wait, you could build a whole savings plan out of this. For everybody. So he does. And it explodes. Companies look at this thing and their eyes light up because it lets them do something they had wanted to do for a long time. It lets them put down a very heavy box they had been carrying for you. See, before this, a lot of workers had pensions. Real pensions, a defined benefit. The deal was simple. You work your career, and the company promises to pay you a set amount every month until you die. And here is the key part. The company carried the risk. They hired the professionals, pension fund managers, actuaries, risk officers, people with degrees, models, salaries, and one job. Make sure the money is there when workers get old. You worked. They handled retirement. That was the arrangement. The 401k flipped the arrangement upside down. Quietly. Because a 401k is a defined contribution plan, which is a fancy way of saying the company puts in a little and then, good luck. All that risk the company used to carry, all those professional jobs, the fund manager, the actuary, the risk officer, that work did not disappear. Somebody still has to manage the money. Somebody still has to control the risk. Somebody still has to make decisions that affect the next 40 years. That somebody is now you. You got hired for 3 technical financial jobs with 0 training, 0 pay, and 0 notice. Nobody sat you down at orientation and said, by the way, you're your own pension fund now. Hope you know portfolio theory. They just slid the box off their shoulders, put it on yours, and kept walking. And the numbers show exactly how that transfer went. Back in 1980, around 4 in 10 private sector workers had a real pension. Today,
It's closer to 1 in 10. In one working lifetime, we went from millions of people having professionals manage their retirement risk to almost nobody having that. The risk did not vanish. It changed shoulders. It landed on yours. So let's open the box. Because manage your own retirement sounds vague enough to ignore until you see the actual risks sitting inside it. The first one is sequence of returns risk. Sounds technical. It is brutally simple.
It means the order of good years and bad years matters enormously, especially right around retirement. Imagine two people with the exact same average return over their investing lives. Same average, same discipline, same total market performance. But one person hits a nasty crash in the first few years after retiring, while they are pulling money out. The other person hits that same crash later. Same average, completely different outcome. The person who gets the bad years at the wrong time can run out of money a decade early. Managing that risk used to be a professional's job. Now it's yours. Surprise! The second risk is fees. Fees are brutal because they are quiet. You don't get a big red alert. You don't feel the money leave. It is just a tiny percentage skimmed off your account every year, so small it looks harmless. But here's what a harmless 1% annual fee can do. Over a full career, a 1% fee can quietly eat roughly a quarter of your final nest egg. A quarter. Gone. Not because the market crashed, not because you made some wild bet, just siphoned off slowly, year after year, in a way designed to feel invisible. If someone took 25% of your retirement in one afternoon, you'd call the cops. Put it in fine print, and people call it normal. The third risk is the hardest one, because the third risk is you. Your behavior. Your nervous system. Your very human instinct to buy when everything feels exciting and sell when everything feels terrifying. Buy high, sell low, the exact opposite of the plan. When the market crashes and your account is bleeding red, every cell in your body wants to make the pain stop. Get out, do something, save what's left. And that one human moment can lock in losses that may have recovered if you had stayed put. A professional's job was to hold the line when you couldn't. Now there may be nobody holding it but you. And you can see the strain in the numbers. The average retirement account balance sounds almost okay, around $168,000. But averages lie when a small number of wealthy people pull the number up. The number that tells the truth is the median, the person right in the middle. And the median retirement balance is only around $44,000. $44,000. That's it. That is what the typical person is bringing to a retirement that might have to last 30 years. Let that sit for a second, because that is not just a statistic. That is someone's grandmother standing in a pharmacy aisle, deciding which prescription can wait. That is a man who worked for 40 years, sitting at the kitchen table at midnight, running the math again, hoping the numbers change this time. They don't. And those people were not lazy. That is the part that hurts. They showed up, they worked, they did the shifts they knew about. They just got handed an invisible professional-grade financial job and were expected to perform it perfectly with no training, no manual, and a phone in their pocket screaming at them to spend more. Of course, the median is 44 grand. The game changed when the box changed shoulders, and the person carrying it was the last one to be told. People are already breaking the emergency glass early. Hardship withdrawals, people yanking money out of retirement just to survive right now, have roughly tripled compared to before the pandemic. Tripled. These are not reckless people. These are people getting crushed by a job they were never trained to do. And no, the government backstop is not going to quietly solve this for you. Social Security's trust fund is projected to run short somewhere in the mid-2030s, and without action, it may only be able to cover part of what has been promised. So the safety net is fraying, right as more people need it. Okay, I know. That got heavy. Take a breath with me. Because I did not bring you here just to scare you and leave you staring at the ceiling. Here is the turn. Here is the whole reason this matters.
Both of these shifts, the image job and the retirement job, share three things, and the third one is where your life changes. First, they are both invisible on your pay stub. You will never see a line item that says, money you lit on fire to look rich. You will never see a line item that says, retirement risk your employer used to carry, now yours. They don't show up. That is what makes them dangerous. You can work them for decades and never see the bill. Second, they both compound, silently, for years, against you. Every dollar wasted on image, every fee skimmed, every panic sell, does not just cost you that dollar. It costs you what that dollar could have become. The damage grows in the dark. But third, and this is everything, both shifts are controllable. Once you can see them, and now you can. That is what changed. They only had power while they were invisible. You just turned the lights on. So let's clock out. The image shift? You quit. Straight up. You walk off.
You decide, starting now, that your money is going toward the real thing, not the picture of it. When you feel that pull, that itch to buy something that makes strangers think you've made it, you pause and ask the only question that matters. Am I buying wealth, or am I renting the appearance of it? Drive the boring car. Skip the upgrade nobody but your ego will notice. Keep the phone another year. Let someone else win the parking lot. Then take the gap, that $400, that $600, and point it at your future instead of your image. You do not have to look rich. You get to become rich. That is the trade, and it is almost embarrassingly powerful. The retirement shift is different. You can't quit that one. That box is on your shoulders now. But you can stop carrying it by hand. You can build a system so boring, so automatic, so emotionally dull that it removes you from the most dangerous decisions. Start with the match. If your employer offers to match your contributions, that is free money, an instant guaranteed return no normal investment can beat. Not getting the full match is leaving part of your compensation on the table every single year. Take it, all of it. Then kill the fees. Go look at what you are actually being charged. If you can, move into low-cost, boring index funds. Turning a 1% fee into a tiny fraction of that can hand you back the quarter of your nest egg you are about to lose. That is not a coupon. That is a fortune recovered by reading the fine print you were trained to ignore. Then automate it and leave it alone. Set the contribution to happen before the money ever hits your hands. Let the system move first. Let willpower sit this one out. And when the market crashes, because it will, more than once, you do the hardest and most important thing. Nothing. You don't panic. You don't sell. You don't make a permanent decision in a temporary storm. You let the automatic system keep buying while everyone else is running for the exits. That boring nothing is not laziness. That is discipline. That is the job a professional used to get paid to do for you. Now you've built a machine that does it for free. And that is the whole secret hiding inside both unpaid shifts. Someone working both at full speed, performing wealth with one hand and ignoring retirement risk with the other, can genuinely believe they're ahead. That is the cruelest part. You can lose both shifts and still think you're winning. Or you can clock out of the image job entirely.
Put the retirement job on autopilot. You are not behind. You are not unimpressive. You are free. You just don't need anyone to know it. So look, you are already working 2 jobs nobody hired you for, proving you're rich, managing your own retirement. You've been working them for years. The only difference now is that you can finally see the schedule. So do the thing that changes everything. Stop performing the wealth you can't afford. Automate the wealth you can actually build. Clock out of the shift that is stealing from you. Put the other one on autopilot, working for you quietly, in the background, for the rest of your life. Nobody clocked you into these shifts, but starting today, you decide when they end. And that is how the quiet ones win.